so on. But they associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with matters of al-ubudiyyah when it comes to worship. They call upon other than Allah, they turn to other than Allah, and so on. So to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He is the only one worthy of worship, and that's why all of our acts of worship is only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also to believe in Allah with His names and attributes, the perfect names and attributes, that it's not permissible for anybody to invent any name or attribute. It has to be according to what's in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We believe in it, we know the meanings of these names and attributes. We do not resemble them or say that they are similar to any of the attributes of the human beings. Nothing is the like of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is the all-hearer, the all-seer, without distortion, without twisting the meanings. We just believe in it the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it to the Prophet ﷺ. And inshallah ta'ala tonight we'll talk about the second pillar of Al-Iman. Although if we talk for the rest of our lives in the first pillar of Al-Iman, we won't fulfill its rights. So it's the whole entire life of the Muslim. He witnessed the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Al-Iman bil-Malaika, to believe in the angels. And to be precise, in whatever time left, 35, 36 minutes, if we go through every verse of the Quran that talks about the angels, and the authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the matter also is very long. Pillars of Al-Iman, that means matters of belief. Matters of belief. So we need to save ourselves and save our deen by having the proper belief, not the distorted belief, but the proper belief according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. And to see how our actions can be affected by this belief, because the belief, if it stays in the heart, does not affect the speech and the actions. It's deficient. It has to affect the way we speak and the way we act and so on. That's something that we would learn from any matters of belief. So the ulama, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on them, they, according to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the points that they mention when it comes to the belief in the angels is 5 points, or 5 points. So maybe you can even try to memorize them. Al-Malaika khalqun azim. So the first point is that the Malaika, humongous creation of Allah, great creation of Allah, khalqun azim. The second point, khalaqahu Allah min nur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them from nur, from light. Lahum wadha'if. They have jobs that they have been trusted to do. Many different things. They have jobs or things that they are entrusted to do. يَتَكَيَّفُونَ كَمَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ أَنْ يَتَكَيَّفُوا. They come into different forms according to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. نُؤْمِنُ بِهِمْ إِجْمَالًا وَتَفْسِيرًا, which means we believe in them in general and in specific with regards to the names that are mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If we believe in these 5 things, we basically comprehended the matters of belief when it comes to the angels, so we don't have a distorted belief here or there. First of all, the name or the word al-Malaika, literally, linguistically, comes from a risala or message, because there are messengers. Like Jibreel alayhi salam, the Malak, the angel, and he's the best of the angels, because his responsibility is the most noble one, which is carrying the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the prophets of Allah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Al-Malaika khalqun azim, great creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not like what people watch movies or cartoons or so on, they picture the angels as little girls with wings. We have to be careful. And we have to be careful what our children are watching. Because these things has its impression in their hearts. And they say he looks like an angel and things like this, that's always referred to some little boys or girls and things like this. Like the people of Jahiliyyah, they used to believe. The people of Jahiliyyah, they used to kill their daughters, right? Out of the issue of the shame, but also to justify their actions, they would claim that the girls are angels. When they kill them, they become angels. And they are the daughters of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All distorted belief, they made up these evil beliefs to justify their crimes. So when we say al-Malaika, they are great creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the evidence of that are great, many in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. One of which, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Jibreel, Shadidul Quwa, he is of great strength, Jibreel alayhi salam. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about him, ذُو مِرَّةٍ فَاسْتَوَى, a beautiful image to Jibreel alayhi salam, and he is very extremely strong. And he's a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, but they are a humongous creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as it's mentioned in the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim and others, the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saw Jibreel in his original form 2 times, munhabitun min as-sama', coming from the heavens, sadd al-ufuq, or said, he blocked the horizon. When he saw Jibreel alayhi salam, he blocked the horizon. Jibreel alayhi salam in another narration, وَلَهُ سُتُّ جَنَاحٍ, and he has 600 wings. This is his original form. He has 600 wings. And he also said alayhi salatu wasalam in the authentic narration that يَقَعْ مِنْهَا التَّهَوِيل مِنَ الْيَقُوتِ, that التَّهَوِيل falls from the wings of Jibreel alayhi salam, the things that would make the eye dazzle or glittering, right, from the yaqut, the ruby and all kinds of things falling from the wings, right, of Jibreel alayhi salam. And Jibreel alayhi salam, when he said to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam about when he destroyed the angels or the villages or the cities of Lut. By the way, the word qarya, when it's mentioned in the Quran or in the Hadith, Qura Lut, right, the villages of Lut. Qarya is not necessarily village. This is only in nowadays language. So they would say for the village qarya and for the city Medina, right? Qarya, if it's mentioned in the Quran, it does not only refer to village, that means a small place. Qarya can be referred to the biggest city ever. But it always refers to the one place, not a country that has many cities. And the qarya is a city or a village, any place where people are gathered together in one place, whether it's big or small. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called Mecca qarya, when Mecca is a city, not a village. So anyway, so it was four villages or 4 cities of the people of Lut. Jibreel alayhi salam, he picked them up. As we know, the punishment of the people of Lut is that they were all raised up in the skies, to the extent of which that the angels, they heard the barking of their dogs in the heavens. So they were raised, lifted all the way up into the skies, flipped over, and then made to fall on the earth. This was the punishment of the people of Lut because of their crime and their disbelief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who's the one that lifted them? Jibreel alayhi salam. With the 600 wings? No. With the tip of one of the wings of Jibreel alayhi salam, as it's mentioned in some of the narrations. The tip is usually the weakest part. Right? So the tip of one of the wings of Jibreel alayhi salam, this is what happened to the cities of Lut. The Prophet ﷺ also mentioned that in Allah أذن لي أن أحدثكم عن ملك من حملة العرش. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me the permission to tell you about an angel from those who carry the arsh, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said ﷺ that the distance between shahmati udhunihi, between this is the shahmat al-udhun, the loop of the ear, right? And I'm pointing for people to know that what is this. But of course, this is a creation of Allah anyway, but between the loop of his ear to his shoulder, Masirat 700 'am, the journey of 700 years, right? And this is just this one part. So there are great creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you go on and on with this, there are many evidences. So this is the first point. And that has an effect, of course, in the heart and one's Iman and one's actions. If this is a creation of Allah, and they are like this, and they have jobs as we will see and so on, that means we have to really rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And the subject of the angels is a beautiful subject because they do great things for the believers by the will of Allah. As we would see, inshallah ta'ala, just some examples. So there are great creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also to have the the contentment and the heart to be settled. That if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, He can destroy all the evil all at once. But this is the sunnah of Allah. This is the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth, that we created to be tested. And the struggle between the truth and falsehood and so on. Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of changing all of this. But this life is for a reason, for people to endure patience and to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala under all kinds of circumstances. The second point is, خَلَقَهُمُ اللَّهُ مِن نُّورٍ. So we'll try inshaAllah ta'ala to remember these 5 points. Great creation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second point is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them from light. As the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, that Allah Azza wa Jalla, He said, خَلَقْتُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ مِن نُّورٍ. I created the angels from light. وَخَلَقْتُ إِبْلِيسَ مِن نَّارٍ. And Shaitan, he was created from the fire. And the human beings, but Adam was created from tin or mud. So the angels are created from light. That's why they are different creation of Allah. They have no will to commit sins or so on. They are a constant worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are pure. They are a beautiful creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in constant worship and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran mentions about this, that for example, for their worship, وَمَا مِنَّا إِلَّا لَهُ مَقَامٌ مَعْلُومٌ. Not one of them, unless he has his fixed position. وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الصَّافُّونَ وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الْمُسَبِّحُونَ. The angels, they said about themselves that they are the Saffun. They, from the Saf, they stand in lines in worship in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ said that in the authentic hadith to the companions, رضي الله عنهم, أَلَا تَصُفُّونَ كَمَا تَصُفُّ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Shouldn't you make your lines like the angels make their lines? And they would also, the angels, fill the gaps in between. When they would make their lines like a wall, like a wall brick, very close to each other, so that they would make the worship. They worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly. And they do that. They also have the place where they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everywhere. And this is what the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, مَا مِن مَوْضِعْ أَرْبَعِ أَصَابِعٍ. There is no position of 4 fingers unless there is an angel making sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's the Bayt al-Ma'mur, which is Hiyal al-Masjid al-Haram, which is above the Kaaba, by the heavens, where the angels every day, as the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in the authentic hadith, 70,000 angels, they enter it and they never come back. Every day, 70,000 angels, they enter it and they make the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they are constant tasbih and worship, and they make even dua, but this will come into the part of the jobs that they have been entrusted to do. They make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the believers, and that's why the believers, when we talk about the angels, we love the angels. They are creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, created for the service and the worship and the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the more the person perfects his Iman, the more great benefits that he will receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the angels. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them from light, and the significance of that, of course, how they are pure creation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are created from mud, so the mud keeps on pulling us down to this earth, and we get to attach to the physical things in this life, and our desires and so on, which is meant to be like this. But the soul of Ruh and Amri Rabbi is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This tends to pull us away from this life to seek the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the hereafter, and to elevate ourselves above these just the desires of this life, so that we're not like the animals and the cats and so on. And that's why the ulama, the famous discussion, and this is not a new thing as some believe. No, this is something from the time of the early generations of Islam. Like it was narrated at the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. In his majlis, somebody asked, who is better, the obedient believer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the human beings, or the angels? Right? So some said the angels because they are pure, they will never commit a sin and so on. But then the other opinion was, it's the believing, the obedient human being. And definitely, no doubt, when the subject came up, someone said Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he is better than the angels. And also, they said for the believers, they do, if they are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are better than the angels because they have a choice and they choose to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's not like less or to belittle the angels. This is just a debate that was present. And anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Most High. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them from light. لهم وظائف أسندت إليه. They have jobs that they have been entrusted with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them, and many things they do by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by His will, everything can be maintained and done by the power of Allah. Kun fayakun. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the angels in matters of worship, and they do these acts, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best the great wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also for us to see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created these means for many great reasons and great wisdom, one of which only, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most just. And when the punishment comes onto people, that means they deserve it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the angels witness. Like the angels, those who are the ones that will write every single thing that a person do in his life. يَتَعَقَبُونَ عَلَيْكُمْ مَلَائِكَةٌ بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ. As the Prophet ﷺ said, angels, يَتَعَقَبُونَ عَلَيْكُمْ, that means they change on you, they take shifts on you, by the day and by the night. 2 during the day, 2 during the night, as we mentioned before. So there are 4 angels for every single human being. 4 of them. 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. From Fajr to Asr 2, from Asr to Fajr, another 2. They meet at Fajr and they meet at Asr. And they ascend to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who finished their day at Asr, and those who will come at night, they come also at Asr, they meet in these 2 prayers. That's why these 2 prayers are virtuous. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man salla al-bardayn dakhala al-jannah." Whoever prays the 2 bardayn, the Fajr and Asr, will enter Jannah. He said also, alayhi salatu wassalam, إِنَّكُمْ سَتَرَوْنَ رَبَّكُمْ عَيَانًا كَمَا تَرَوْنَ الْقَمَرَ كما ترون القمر وهو في ليلة البدر، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام: فإن استطعتم على ألا تغلبوا على صلاة قبل طلوع الشمس وقبل غروبها فافعلوا. That indeed you will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment very clearly, without any difficulties. The same way you have the ease of looking at the moon when it's full moon. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever wants to reach this level, which is the most delightful thing whatsoever in the hereafter and in Jannah, nothing compared for the believers to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said alayhi salatu wasalam, if you are capable that you would never miss a salah before sunrise, which is Fajr, and before sunset, which is Asr, then do so. Imam al-Khattabi rahimahullah, meaning in jama'ah, in congregation in the masjid. So they take shifts and they ascend to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks them, and He knows best, but to make them witness for the human beings or against them. How did you leave my slaves? They would say, we came to them when they were in salah, and we left them when they were in salah. So it's more likely when the person, this is his life, what's in between, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be forgiven, as long as there's no israr or persistency or major sins and so on. So this is something that angels are working and constantly working, they're never fatigued or tired, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are the angels, those who, when a person comes to the masjid and he prays 2 rak'ah or sunnah prayer or whatever, and he sits and he waits for the salah. Right? Something that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us, that we sometimes even belittle these types of actions. When there is wahy revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came with these virtuous deeds. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that whoever do this, and he comes to the masjid and he prays, and he sits, he did not pray fard yet, the obligation yet, he came early, and he's waiting for the salah. Just for the fact that he's waiting for the salah, this is an act of worship. Intirar salah. To wait for the salah, this is an act of worship, and the angels would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for such a person. They would say, Allahumma aghfir lah, Allahumma arham. Allah have mercy, Allah forgive him, Allah have mercy on him. Ma lam yuhdith, ma lam yu'difi, ma lam yuhdith. As long as he does not harm anybody in the masjid, raising his voice, bad smell, whatever there is, because the angels, it hurts them or it bothers them what bothers the human being. by the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the malaika, يَتَأَذُّونَ مِمَّا يَتَأَذَّى مِنْهُ ابْنُ آدَمَ. That the angels, it bothers them what bothers human beings. Angels are unseen to us, but we know what bothers the human beings. So staying away from what bothers the human beings, that means the angels are close to us. So the bad breath, the different, bad smell, or raising the voice in the masjid, or these types of things, it makes the angels away from us. So the dua for those who would come and they would wait for the salah. And since they are pure creation of Allah, that means the dua is no doubt accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is something that a Muslim should subject himself to such blessings, that he will receive this dua. If you go to the most pious person on earth today, or if you are the most pious person on earth today, you make dua, definitely this is a good thing. But you have a guarantee here that this creation of Allah, the dua is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by just coming early to the salah, praying, whatever, if it's sunnah, tahiyatul masjid, or whatever, a person waits for the salah. And there are many hadith like this, many. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran that the angels وَيَسْتَغْفِرُونَ لِمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, they ask forgiveness for those who are on earth. And that's why the heart should be having this love to the angels. We love the angels because this is what they do. They ask for forgiveness for you, for the believers. And they ask forgiveness for those who, الَّذِينَ تَابُوا, for those who repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they see someone repented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they help him. They make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them. They write the names of those who come for Jum'ah. They stand by the gate of the masjid and see to us. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us. And this is all authentic hadith. They would write the names of the people when they're coming to the Salatul Jum'ah. And once the Imam gets on the minbar, they close their books and they sit and listen to the dhikr, to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whoever comes after the Imam gets on the minbar, their names are not written. They missed a great reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They still, if they get to pray the Jumu'ah prayer, save themselves from the punishment, because there's a punishment and reward. They save themselves from the punishment of missing Jumu'ah, but they miss this great honor that the angels would write their names and they would get the reward of the Jumu'ah Salah. Also the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the angels, they make the dua or blessings, and I'm having some points here to the many things that the angels they do. They make dua for those who pray in the first lines and so on in the salah. And this is also part of the there is also a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that talks about how the angels, they help the believers. They help them. The Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, إِنَّ لِلشَّيْطَانِ لَمَّةً وَإِنَّ لِلْمَلَكِ لَمَّةً. The shaitan has a lamma. Lamma is the whisper, right? And the angel, he has a whisper. فَأَمَّا لَمَّةُ الشَّيْطَانِ فَإِعَادٌ بِالشَّرِّ. The whisper of the shaitan is when he whispers to you to do evil. The shaitan is deceitful, right? So it doesn't have to be clear, direct evil, because if he tells you when you're a musalli and a righteous person, go drink or do this or that, it's very obvious, right? He doesn't go like this. He goes steps, right? One step after the other. He might even whisper to you to do a good deed, but of a lesser reward, so that you would miss what is the sunnah, for example, what you need to do now. And once he gets this from you, he wins, he gets stronger. Even you did a good deed. Like it's time for the salah, but go give charity. Giving charity is a good thing. Miss the salah, it's okay, but you're doing a good deed. And you justify all kinds of things. You get that from you, you can make the salah and go make the charity. There's no contradictions. But the point is how to save ourselves is by following the way of the Prophet ﷺ, not what we think is good and sounds good and so on. So this is what the shaitan does. And in the same hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, and also for the malak, the angel, there's a lamma, there's a whisper from the angel. يَعَادُ بِالْخَيْرِ. He would give promise of the goodness. So when a person finds himself, also this can be deceiving because the shaitan might do the same, and we don't have the way to differentiate between what's for the angel and what's for the shaitan if we don't have the knowledge. Right? So we have to have the knowledge. So if it's time for the salah, for example, and you find yourself being pushed, go to the salah. Right? There's no doubt this is the good one, right? But this is not from the shaitan. And that's why we have to have the knowledge to make sure that who is helping us in one way or the other. Also, the angels, for example, they make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and al-malaika yusallun. You would find many hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that the angels yusallun, that means they are making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the meaning of yusallun. As-salah from the angels is a dua from them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessings and for the person to be praised and so on. The salah, if it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's praising the individual. So, for example, the angels, يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى الصُّفُوفِ الْأُولَى. They make salah on the first lines, making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They also يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى مُعَلِّمِ النَّاسِ الْخَيْرِ. They make dua to the one that teaches people what is good. This is also mentioned. إِنَّ الْمَلَائِكَ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ يَتَسَحَّرُونَ. The Prophet ﷺ said the angels, they make dua for those who eat suhoor, before they fast, before Fajr. Those who visit the sick, right? Not one or two or three angels that make dua if you visit the sick, 70,000. As it's mentioned in the hadith, that man aada maridan, whoever visit a sick in part of the day or part of the night. The hadith first mentioned during the night. 70,000 angels, they will make dua for that person till the morning. 70,000 till the morning, they're making dua to that person. And again, the dua is accepted. If the unseen, and this is a sentence that we always should remember, and I repeat it many times, so forgive me for repeating it so many times, but we're really in need of this. If the unseen is lifted, because we're so trapped into this materialistic life, if the unseen is lifted, and it's lifted when we read the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, we get to see, not with our eyes, but with the basira, with our hearts, we get to see what's beyond this life. So if the unseen is lifted and people see what is being prepared for them when they do these good deeds, their hearts will melt, as Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah said. It will melt because of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nobody will be lazy anymore. But this is again the test. 70,000 angels. And imagine the acceptance of the dua of the 70,000 when a person would go visit the sick for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the angels, they make this salah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the believers, what is the significance of it? And one of the benefits of it, of course, the dua and so on. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said something in the Quran about it. هو الذي يصلي عليكم وملائكته ليخرجكم من الظلمات إلى النور وكان بالمؤمنين رحيما. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His angels, yusalluna, that means they praise you, and the angels, they make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you, to get you out from the darknesses to the light. To get you out from the darknesses to the light, to be steadfast on the truth and to keep you there till the last moment of one's life, till they come down to the person dying and they give him the glad tidings. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. That those who said, our Lord is Allah, and then they became steadfast on these good deeds and away from the sins and so on, the angels come down to them at the moment of death. You should not fear of what's coming ahead, and nor shall you grieve of what you're leaving behind. So they are with them. نَحْنُ أَوْلِيَاؤُكُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. The angels will tell them, we are your supporters and help and everything in this life. They were with the believers all the time, supporting them, making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them to be steadfast. To the extent of which, and this is an authentic narration, amazing one, the one with the Jumu'ah, when they write the names, right? When the one that is always coming every Jumu'ah early, but he's missing this one particular Jumu'ah. An angel will say to the other, where is so and so? He didn't come. So one will say, maybe he's sick. Maybe he has an excuse. So they will make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for him. And this narration is Muslim Imam Ahmad, and it's a sound narration. Right? So to that extent, they have this, and this is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if that would, when you hear these types of hadith, that increases the love to the angels, and imagine then the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hearts of the believers, because the angels, they are entrusted by these things. Who's the one that ordered them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most merciful. That's why the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nobody can ever comprehend it if this is just from the creation of Allah, which is the angels. When the Muslim make a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his Muslim brother, as we know the hadith, an angel, this is his job, muwakkal. Muwakkal, that means he's been entrusted to do this. Whenever someone would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for himself, for his Muslim brother, but ولكن بظاهر الغيب, not in front of that brother, because otherwise he might be showing off, or maybe he will get benefit from him or whatever, without him hearing anything, without him seeing anything, and it's بظاهر الغيب, you don't say then the next day, by the way, I made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you last night. That's not ظاهر الغيب anymore. ظاهر الغيب is that you don't mention it before or after, never in your whole entire life will say to that Muslim brother, by the way, I'm making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you all the time. And it's not ظاهر الغيب anymore. Right? And the same thing, many people, they always say to one another, don't forget me in your dua when you're alone, بظاهر الغيب. Don't say that. And the Muslim, whenever we have to train ourselves, as the ulama say, you see someone, your brother, you met someone, we have to have a portion of our dua. You think of the people in your life, and that's the blessings of being in the masjid, in the company of those who are righteous and so on. They should remember one another. Not just remember those who are the highest righteous or the closest to them. They should remember the deviant more, and the sinner more, right? And they would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them, and that brings what to the person? As it's mentioned in the hadith, the angel would say, Ameen walaka, mithlu, that means Ameen, they would make ta'meen to your dua. And the dua is accepted. So this is one of the ways to make sure that if you want your dua to be accepted for whatever matter there is, also make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your Muslim brother for the same thing. They would say Ameen, and they would say, and you also would have the same. So this is great favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means how will a person then be greedy with his dua? And again, the sign of sincerity is that the person doesn't say that to anyone. And we should train ourselves that not just when a Muslim, he shows that he has some concern, that Muslim has right on us. You see someone concerned, someone lost weight, someone is sad, someone he tell you that he has an issue. We should not just be for the moment, we should make dua and remember one another for matters of dua. And anyone that has a favor on a person or someone that you met in the past or parents. So there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of dua to be done, and a lot of busyness that a Muslim should be busy with in making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on the other hand, the other side, Prophet ﷺ said, لَا تَدْعُوا عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ. Do not make dua against yourself or against your children. Right? Why? فَإِنَّ الْمَلَائِكَةَ تُؤَمِّنُ عَلَى دُعَائِكُمْ. Because the angels, they say Ameen for your dua. So when you're saying dua, in general, the angels, they say Ameen to your dua. So don't make dua against yourself or against others and so on. They witness the majalis al-ilm, as we know in the many hadith. Angels just to witness the gatherings of knowledge and where the name of Allah is mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And what is the better thing in this life than to be present in these types of gatherings? When a person in the salah, he says, Sami Allahu liman hamidah, Rabbana lakal hamd, as the Prophet ﷺ, when he said after the salah, who said, Hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi? One of the Sahaba, he said that behind the Prophet ﷺ, Rabbana lakal hamd, then he said, Hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi. One of the companions, he said, I did the Prophet of Allah. Prophet ﷺ said, I saw bid'an wa thalathina malakan. I saw 30-something angels, yabtadirunaha. All of them, they're trying to catch it. They're trying to get it. Such a virtuous thing, who will write it down because of the virtues of it. So they are witnessing the salah. They are witnessing the good gatherings of the believers. They send the salam to the Prophet ﷺ when the person would make the salah and salam on the Prophet ﷺ, as it's mentioned in authentic hadith. If a person go visit his brother for the sake of Allah, also they are with the person witnessing these things. And the famous hadith, when a man went to visit a brother for the sake of Allah in the other side of town, that means he walked for some time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala أرسل له ملكا على مدرجته. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an angel on his path to ask him. And that's where the point, they have different shapes. He came in the form of a man. And he asked him, where are you going? I said, to my brother, for the, not his biological brother, his brother for the sake of Allah. He said, أَلَكَ حَاجَّةَ رُبُّهَا? Do you have something that you want from him, some worldly benefit or anything? He said no. He said that he is my brother for the sake of Allah. And then the angel told him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent me to you to inform you that he had forgiven you. Right? That his sins had been forgiven just for that, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They witnessed the janazah of the righteous people, as it happened at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they witnessed the janazah of those who are righteous, and that's why a person should only say what is good, because they make ta'meen, as we said on the dua, especially also if a person died. The angels, as the Prophet ﷺ said, بَاسِطُ أَجْنِحَتِهَا عَلَى الشَّامِ, on Sham, Palestine, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, the angels, they make their wings on the Sham, right? And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, it's a blessed place. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said that لَا خَيْرَ فِيكُمْ إِنْ فَسَدَ أَهْلُ الشَّامِ, أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, there is no goodness in you if the people of Sham are corrupt. There's no goodness in this world. So it's a way to see how strong we are in matters of the deen. Look at how the Muslims are in the Sham, right? And so on. So they also deserve the dua from us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are forbidden from hurting the angels, as we said. The angels do not enter with all of what is mentioned. We definitely want the angels to be with us at all times. Means of protection and dua and something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it so easy with simple acts. But then there are certain things the angels won't even enter the homes because of it. Right? One of which, as the Prophet ﷺ said, الْمَلَائِكَةُ تَدْخُلُ بَيْتًا فِيهِ كَلْبٌ أَوْ صُورٌ. The angels, they do not enter a home that has a dog in it or an image. And another narration, tamathil, the statues and so on. So definitely, which is no doubt that it's not permissible, are the statues and the things that are drawn with the hand of anything that has a soul, ruh, human being or animal or anything like this. So statues, people, they put as ornaments and things like this has to be removed. And the Prophet ﷺ said, As-surah ras, the surah, the image is the head. Once we get with our intellect, what's wrong with that? It has nothing to do with this or that, I'm not worshipping it. Then it's really, we need to submit ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The angels, they do not enter. That's it. The Prophet ﷺ said that. And nobody to oppose or to set forth something or opinion. And somebody say, well, this at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, because they were close time to worshipping idols. MashaAllah. He's praising himself so much, right, that these companions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised, they're closer to worshipping idols than us. When worshipping idols is everywhere, right? So it's not about the wisdom behind it or this or that, the matter is clear. So we need to humble ourselves if we want the angels to be at home, no dog in sight, and no images of those. And the same thing if something is hanging on the wall, even if it's photographic pictures that the ulama have differences of opinions, why hang things on the wall? Why take the chance of having the angels do not enter the homes? So removing anything that is being respected or honored, even if it's one's father, one's mother, and so on. This is something to put it away, but not to hang it on the walls and things like this. Also, eating garlic and onions, especially when a person comes to the raw ones, when a person comes to the masjid, a person should not come to the masjid, as the Prophet ﷺ said, if he ate these things. And if a person thinks that, oh, I don't smell it, you don't smell it. The one next to you, is the one that smells it. But we don't smell it. If you eat 10 onions all at once, right, you won't smell nothing most of the time. But those who are next to us, they will smell it. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ would even order them to be kicked out of the masjid. People, if they do that, this is a crime. Right? You kicking a Muslim out of the masjid, this is act of kufr. The Prophet ﷺ used to tell them to leave if they eat onions or garlic. That means this is a valid thing. Why? So that you don't harm others and also harming the angels. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ will always use the siwak, even when he wake up, even if a person at home, you pray the night prayer, to use the siwak before praying the night prayer, and the evidences of the angels being close to one and their mouth and so on. One last hadith, the Prophet, or two more, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever, something very simple but it's harmful, whoever points to his Muslim brother with a knife or a sharp edge, even if he's joking, the angels curses him. Just pointing it. He didn't do anything, right? Imagine then going beyond that. What would the angels do? Shedding blood and all of these evil things. Just to point a sharp edge or to point a gun. This is not permissible even if it's joking. So this is a serious matter, and the angels, they react to this. Also the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, "Man sabba ashabi," whoever curses my companions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curses him and the angels curses him. Those who would curse the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, so they have many endless jobs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entrusted them with. يتكيفون كما شاء الله لهم أن يتكيفوا. They become in different shapes, as the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, he came in the form of a man and so on. And we believe in them in general and in specific. In general, it means we believe in all the angels, because there are many, many of them, as we heard. And in specifics, only the names that are mentioned. Jibreel alayhi salam being the best of the angels, and his job is the wahy, revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the prophets, and that's why after the Prophet sallallahu that's it. And there is Israfil, the one that is responsible for blowing the trumpet for the Day of Judgment, and he is holding it and waiting for the order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the Prophet ﷺ said, Mikael, he's responsible for the rizq and the provisions and the rain and so on. And Munkar wa Nakir, in the grave, when they question the person. Angel of death is called Malakul Maut. Some people, they say Azrael. Right? Azrael has no basis into the Sunnah. Right? He's the angel of death. Right? He's the angel of death. And of course Malik, the keeper of the Hellfire, and Ridwan, the keeper of Jannah. So these specific angels, we also believe in them with their names, if it's mentioned in the Quran or in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But some people, they think Raqibun wa Atid are two names of the angels, right? Which is mentioned in Surah Qaf. This is attributes, this is characteristics of two angels, right? That they would be with the person in the Day of Judgment. So we believe in them in general and in specific, whatever names are mentioned. And of course the benefit and the outcome that will affect our actions, I think it's very obvious that we should do these acts and subject ourselves to the dua of the angels and these good deeds and so on, and to be content that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Most High and He does not need our ibadah. The angels that are constantly in ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are the ones in need of it. We are the ones in need to be holding fast to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are many, of course, things, but we didn't mention everything, but this is just an idea of some of the things mentioned about it. So they are